I learned everything I needed to know about drums. Then he came up and he played on the record and he said, "This is the worst sounding kick drum I've ever heard in my life." It damaged me so bad that I wanted to come back and have the best sounding kick drum that anyone had ever heard. It just needed an oil drum. You don't forget certain sessions.
No.
Especially when they're your own.
Oh, yeah.
You remember them like they were yesterday. I always was fascinated with drums, and I realized almost at a certain point that without a great groove, there was no song. And then I ended up in New York working with drummers like Lenny White, Billy Cobham, who to me really understood all about bebop and groove and funk. And that's where it really came together. Doing sessions, listening to their playing, working in odd time signatures, and then listening to the way records are made, which back then was everybody in a room together. And then when I started to mix, I realized I could soundscape my own sound. And that was what was really exciting. I mean, the ability to be able to create my own drums and not be a drummer is the coolest feeling in the world, especially when you can get the biggest kick or the most powerful snare and just make the song like rise out of the ashes like a phoenix and make the chorus just pop. So I loved learning about rhythm. I loved learning about drums, and being able to finally be in my own studio gave me the ability to experiment. Steven Slate sent Jerry here to help us to create the drum sound that you're getting today. We were sitting here yesterday and we were listening to the tom-toms. We were thinking, you know, they sound okay, and everything kind of sounded plain. And I just said, you know what, let's drop the gloves.
We took the bottom heads off, stuck a bunch of moon gel on there, and just got some super thwacky sounds that I think are gonna really work well when you blend in the samples with them. Because when you're using samples, you're not getting a big boom sound. You're getting just a thwack. You're looking for something that just cuts. I think it was a great decision. It just sounds completely different than the stuff I've done in the last few sessions.
I'm going to go through some of the outboard gear today. What I've got here right now, there's 4 Neve original 1073s. I've had my eye on this console for about 15, 20 years and finally became available, and I took 4 strips. It was in a planetarium in Canada. These are pretty well pristine. They've never been used because the planetarium only had a stereo. Here, these are my favorite compressors. They're the ADR and they're stereo 760s. A lot of the drum sound that's created here at the House Aloud is through these ADRs. I've had them for a long time. This is an Ssl compressor that Dan Corniff made. That is a fantastic piece. I love this piece. Basically, it goes to the Ssl bus compressor, and then we run it out through Dan's. And Dan makes these, and they're sensational. These kind of are consecutive serial number 1176s, and you can join them together in stereo. If you're going to get one compressor, this is the one to get an 1176 blackface. It's just the best. This is my secret weapon here. This is an SPX 90. It's worth about $60. And I love using it as reverb. I love using it on the snare. A lot of that Paramore sound comes from an SPX 90. This console is in use every day. In my opinion, all the greats use this console because it has a lot of headroom. It has a very organic sound. It's phenomenal for rock music. You can really push this compressor hard. You can sum it and push things in a way that you can't really do on a Neve, for example, or an API. It just has a sound. Okay, we're going to have a look through the mics today. Basically what we've got here is we've got the D112, and there's a backwards monitor here that basically is for the sub. On the snare we've got a 57, and then underneath is a Sennheiser 441, and it's sitting again about 3 to 4 inches off the bottom of the snare. On the hi-hat we have a V67, which is a pencil condenser mic. It's pointing down at an angle. Again, 4 or 5 inches off the hi-hat. We have a China with a Royer 122. I think this will be one of the first Chinas that'll be available on the Steven Slate kit. Moving on is the first tom, and we had some different microphones on here yesterday. One thing we did was take the heads off the bottom. I really wanted to hear more like a Canon effect. and decided to go a little bit more aggressive. So what we've got here is a 57, again on the 57 on rack 1 and 2. And I've got gels. This one has 2, this one has 1. And I love the gels because it deadens it out and it doesn't give too much ring. This is a snare that Lenny White had lent us, and I just love the sound of this. This is an Tree snare, which is a custom made with an attack drum head on it. It weighs about 20 pounds, so it's really cool. And of course I have the Vinnie Paul. Steven Slate had called me right after Misery Business came out, and he said, you know, what are you using in the studio? What is that sound? This is the snare drum we used. I was a little scared actually to even talk to him about it because I had no idea that we created something very special that people were going to be using. Now I'm doing this thing with Steven Slate because I believe that there's many different great sounds in music and many different influences. And what I'm trying to do is create a situation where you can use these drums and use these cymbals and use the room to make music exciting again, not to make just the drums exciting. Whatever you're doing with these drums, whatever you're trying to create, take some risks, take some chances with them. Add your own drum kit to them. Whatever you think you need to do, use things to their advantage. Don't overload all the time. And I think that's what Steven Slate has. I think he's given us all a fantastic, palette to just work from, make things come to life, enjoy them. That's why I think Steven made them in the first place, because they are there as tools.